Hello class, welcome to Geometry Lesson 5.1, which is all about perpendicular and angle bisectors. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to use perpendicular and angle bisectors to solve problems. Let's quickly refresh our memories. Perpendicular means 90 degrees or that it is a right angle. They are the same thing. All three of those things mean the same thing. Perpendicular is 90 degrees and right angle. Angle bisector, remember the word bisector means cut in half. That means you have two equal pieces. And right now we're talking about an angle bisector, so that means that our angles are cut in half. All right, so let's talk about the perpendicular bisector theorem. So Theorem 5.1 is if a point is on the perpendicular bisector of a segment, then it is equidistant. That means equal distance, okay? Equidistant from the endpoints of the segment. That means that this point right here is the same distance from x as it is from y. And if that's true, that means that px is equal to py. Okay, so that means if it cuts that opposite side in half, the side that the line's going through, the perpendicular bisector is going through, the other two sides of the triangle are congruent. They're equal. You're going to use that information to set up equations, okay? And then Theorem 5.2 is the opposite of that. That means if I have two sides that are equal to each other, that means that the other two sides are, that other side is cut in half, and those two smaller segments are equal to each other as well. Okay, so you have the perpendicular bisector theorem where the two sides of the triangle, the two legs, are congruent, and then the converse is where the base gets cut in half. All right, so if we want to find the value of AD using the perpendicular bisector theorem, since we have this line going through right here and it gives us that right angle symbol, that means that it's perpendicular, and we have 11 and 11, so we know that these two sides are congruent. That means that AB is congruent or equal to AD. So I can say 6x minus 10 equals 3x plus 2. And if I solve that, I can subtract 3x from both sides. I'm left with 3x minus 10 equals 2. And then I can move that 10 over by adding. And I'm left with 3x equals 12. Divide both sides by 3, and I'm left with x equals 4. But that's not what it's asking me. If I go back to the original question, I want to know what AD is. So AD is 3x, we said was 4. So I'm going to plug a 4 in instead of writing x plus 2. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14 units for AD. Why don't you go ahead and solve for the value of WY using the converse of the perpendicular bisector theorem? Hopefully you ended up with n equaling 3 and then plugged that back in to solve for WY and ended up with WY equals 13 units. If you have questions on that, please be sure to reach out for some help. All right, now let's look at two more theorems. So the angle bisector theorem. So remember, angle bisector means the angle is getting cut in half, two equal parts. Okay, so we have if a point is on the bisector of an angle, then it is equidistant. Okay, so remember I explained that that means equal distance from the two sides of the angle. Okay, so if we look at this picture, if we have a picture that looks like this and we know that we have two congruent angles, that means that these two sides are equal to each other as long as they meet the sides of the large angle at 90 degrees, okay? So we know BD is equal to CD. We have two congruent angles, then BD equals CD. The converse is just the opposite of that, meaning if I know that these two sides are equal, then I know that these two angles are also equal. Okay, so angle bisector is talking about the sides, the segments being equal. The converse is talking about the angles being equal as a result. So if we look at example 2, apply the angle bisector theorem. If HI is 7 and IJ is 7 and HGI is 25, so we know that this angle is 25. I want to know what is IGJ. So I want to know what this blue angle is. Well, if I know that these two sides are congruent, I know that the two angles are congruent. That means that the measure of angle IGJ also has to be 25. Go ahead and apply the angle bisector theorem on your own using the information. If the measure of angle HGJ equals 57 and the measure of angle IGJ equals 28.5 and HI equals 12.2, what is the value of IJ? Good luck. Hopefully for this one, you noticed that they listed the large angle, HGJ, as 57, and then the smaller angle as 28.5. So the first thing we needed to do was double check to make sure that IGJ was truly half of that large angle. So I just double checked, didn't have a calculator, so I just did quick little long division to show you guys that it is 28.5. So since both of those angles are equal, I know that HI has to be equal to IJ, therefore IJ equals 12.2 units. Here's the quick little concept summary regarding the perpendicular and angle bisectors. So this is a great thing for you to take a screenshot of, especially if you haven't taken screenshots of all of the theorems. This one's a little nicer because it has all the pictures of all of them just in one thing, so you aren't shuffling through multiple pictures. If you have questions at all, please feel free to reach out for some help, and I'd be happy to help you. Have a great day.